Hello.
Hey
How
girl,
are you?
I'm doing great. How are you doing?
I'm busy with a newborn, as you know.
Yes,
But other than that, I'm doing great. Awesome.
that's wonderful. Well, you're looking awesome. Like if you
Of
didn't say the
course,
word
you gotta
newborn, nobody would know you just had a baby. Like, no.
stop it.
I'm serious.
Right.
I'm serious. So, well, they've heard a little bit about both of us through our intro, but
Right.
we're calling this very first episode in honor of just the month of October. Since you're the nurse here,
Oh
what
my
is
God.
the buzz about the month of October?
Well, the month of October is Pregnancy and Infancy Loss Awareness Month. And 1 in 4 women actually either has a miscarriage or a stillbirth or a child that dies in infancy, which is crazy because that means somebody you know has dealt with something like that.
Mm-hmm.
So we are just lighting candles. Yesterday was the official honorary day for that, where we lit candles for every mother who has been through that, for every family who has been through that, and just kind of keeping them in our thoughts and our prayers, and
Mm-hmm.
um, letting them know that however they feel is valid, and
Right.
also that their child is valid. Their child is a person forever.
I
So,
love that. Wow, I didn't know that. So,
yes.
is that a common thing that maybe happens at different hospitals and
Oh, it's a national thing now. You know, every day is National Something Month,
right?
National Something
Every
Day, anyways. But that is just, it has taken off and it has blown up all over the internet. So you probably see something on Facebook or
I
Instagram or
see.
Twitter
Yeah.
about that. And if you know somebody, those are probably the people who are posting about it and
Mhm.
sharing about it, which, is to bring awareness to the fact that it can happen. It's not always something that you know is going to happen.
Right.
And, it really does affect not just the mother, but the whole family.
Right.
So,
Wow, that's amazing.
yeah.
Well, listen, we hope y'all don't think this is cheesy, but we call this the why, which is our
Absolutely.
reason. This is our reason. We want to share just everything. Like, how did the Mama Forum, this is the first time we're even saying the name. How did
Yep.
the Mama Forum, that feels good, doesn't it?
Mama Forum.
Mama Forum. How did this become, how was it birthed? So I could go on and on and on my end, but
Oh my God.
once again, here's the red carpet because I need to know something that I don't know. And that is, I had my baby August 21st.
Yeah.
I don't know if you remember August 21st, 2019, until whatever day in August when you walked into the place where I was. I don't want
Right.
to spill the tea. What happened? Like,
Oh my
what
goodness.
led up to us crossing paths on your side?
It really was, it had to be God, obviously, because let me tell you, I was on my unit at my hospital. I'm a labor and delivery nurse, as you guys probably know by now.
Mhm.
Dropping off a book or something crazy like that. And my head nurse was like, "Hey, do you want to work?" And I was like, "No, I really don't." I was working quite a bit at that time, and I saw on the board that there was this patient coming in whose blood pressures were 250s over 150, and it was like her fifth pregnancy, and she had had a preterm delivery before, and a history of preeclampsia, and I was just like, no, there's a train wreck coming. I'm leaving. And lo and behold, probably 2 or 3 days later, I'm not even sure at this point, I was working on the postpartum floor, and they called me and said, "Hey, we've got this patient. She's a hard stick," just meaning they couldn't get an IV on her. "And can you come in? We know you can probably get this IV in." And I'm like, "Okay, let me come and look." And I walk into this room, and this beautiful family is sitting there. There's this perfect patient with teal hair, as you can tell. That's my favorite color. And we were just talking, and I'm starting her IV. I got her IV, so I'm sure she was happy with me for that. And of course, that was you and your husband and a friend, and I think 1 or 2 of your daughters was in there with you. Um, and I got to take care of you in the next couple of days and kind of just share with you some education and some background and why the things were happening to you that you were going through. And it really was healing for me, having been through a lot of the same things with my pregnancy.
Wow.
So that's how we met. And from there, it was just kind of history. But the high points, I got to follow you through your journey with your daughter in the NICU. And we just really kind of bonded through that, through your story and me telling you my story. It was just an amazing, kind of very organic thing that happened between us. And now here we are, over a year later. You have a 1-year-old now. I have another baby now.
Yeah.
It's all kind of crazy that it happened that way, but it was definitely meant to be. It was not a coincidence.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
Yes.
Girl, I'm like trying not to burst out of my seat, just hearing you share those details, because so much of our journey has been from the part where we met when you put the IV in my wrist and moving forward. You know what I mean? So we haven't very much gone back, other than just us being like, wow, look how God did this. It really general, right? When we talk about that. That's wild. So on my side, yes, I've had 3 out of 4 babies that were NICU babies. And my last baby, Misa, was definitely the most, she just came in with the bang of the bangs. It happened very fast. But because I've had enough babies, I already know about my veins. They're tiny, they're difficult, so I'm literally in there as they're changing shifts and all the things, and they're trying to get this IV in my arm. And they had actually called for, the term, the nice people with the machine that, what are they called?
The IV team. It's just IV team people.
IV team people. And this was the first that I had actually had anyone other than just different nurses and techs and stuff try to attempt to do this. So I was like, oh, you guys have a little machine? They're like, oh yeah, we'll get to see him there and blah, 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 blah. No sooner than we're waiting on the people, because I'm like telling them, yeah, this arm's difficult. They're like, well, we've poked over there enough. Okay, I'm just telling you, that's my convo right when Erica comes in. And let me just put it out there. I call her Angel Nurse Erica. And I don't know if she's okay with me putting it out there in these streets like that, but that's who she is to me. Okay.
I don't mind.
So Angel Nurse Erica comes in, and the way I tell it is, I smelled her before I saw her. Y'all, she came in there smelling like all the butters.
That's a good thing.
It's a good smell. Listen, I'm putting it out. All the butters, the coconuts, and all the oils and all the things. And then I see her turn this corner, and her hair, look at her hair. Enough said, right? It was just so beautiful. And then she's all close, and I'm like, who is she? And no kidding, I look over at Maddie. It was Maddie, my oldest daughter, who was 15. She's now 16. Or no, she was 14. She's now 15. I looked at Maddie, and I was like, and Maddie's bottom lip, like her jaw was in her lap, okay? She was just as amazed by Angel Nurse Erica, just her coming in. Then she gets all the stuff, right? And like drops the mic, puts that IV the in there like it was nothing.
Oh
And,
my goodness.
and then really quickly is just telling me, hi, my name is Nurse Erica. Da, 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 da. I'm just coming in. She didn't even know if I was going to be her patient, y'all. She just was thrown in there, dropped the mic, and left. Then when she realized I am her patient, y'all, she comes in here, tells me how she had heard of me possibly being at the other hospital before I was transferred. And then goes in about preeclampsia and told me everything I've wanted to know 4 babies ago. Guys, when I tell you it's God, and that's how she became Angel Nurse Erica in my life. And she will always be that, and she's my dear friend now, and Angel Nurse Erica, period. Okay?
Oh my goodness.
So that's my side. It's dramatic because that's just me, but it's the truth. That's what happened. And to this day, we've been glued together when we lived locally.
Right.
And I relocated, and through Marco Polo, we stay in touch. I got to walk through your pregnancy with you.
Yes, you did. My pregnancy, my second pregnancy, which was a carbon copy of my first. I didn't have preeclampsia, of course, this time because my blood pressure stayed high after my first pregnancy, but I still ended up in the same boat that you had been in. Um, and now my baby is 2 months old, and I'm still kind of in that same boat with the blood pressure medicine and trying to balance everything and what's going on and trying to figure everything out. And to have you to share that with along the way, for everything to be okay and then not, and be like, okay, it's happening. And you already know what we're talking about. And it's just like, okay, but I've got support. I've got my friend who knows exactly, has been through it several times. We both now know why it's happening and how we can not prevent it or lessen it, but we know how to get through it because we've both been through it.
Right.
So that means all the difference in this pregnancy from my last pregnancy, when it was such a struggle to just feel like, why is this happening to me? Why do I feel alone? And this is as a labor and delivery nurse. But now I see my patients so much differently. And I see this so often. And it happened to you during your pregnancy at 25 weeks, or it ended with 25 weeks.
Right.
For me, it happened after my son was born, after both of my sons were born.
Right.
5 years apart, and just like step one, step two, step three, it was just like, this is the story. So
You could almost predict
exactly how
what's happening.
it was almost like, I know how this goes.
Yeah.
So it's been a total blessing. It's been a total inspiration just to have you in my life. And as my patient, it's like, okay, this is weird. I'm still talking to my patients. I usually don't do that.
Yeah.
But I'll never forget the bombshell that you dropped on me, where you were like, you're telling me this stuff. And I was just telling you, I thought I was rambling at the time. I'm telling you about preeclampsia, and let me tell you why this typically happens. You might already know this because you've had multiple children and you've had this happen before. And you're like, no, I wanted to know this information.
Yeah.
You have to tell more people. I was like,
that's what I told her.
Oh, but that's how my channel Beyond the Bump got started. That's how it really just lit a fire under me when you were like, no, you can save lives this way.
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, I want to do that. So it's been a up and down ride, obviously, a roller coaster. And, pandemic and new baby and you're moving away, which, we'll meet again, of course.
Yeah.
But it's just been an amazing ride to hear people come to me and be like, your channel did this, or I watched your video about blood pressure. And I'm like, well, let me tell you, my friend Moni told me I had to share my story. And I have probably had 5 or 6 of even close friends be like, I watched your video about this and I'm going through that now. And that helped me cope, at least, at the very minimum. It helped me cope. It helped me know the signs to look for. So I have you to thank for just getting me started on this route.
Girl, that's firstly amazing. I'm honored to just even be a part of your journey and have you be you are like, I don't even have the words. I feel like my purpose in having these babies the way I had them came to life. And in my understanding, I'll say it, my understanding for the process, instead of still having all the questions and asking why and wondering and trying to research and trying to prevent each pregnancy from looking like the last and all of that. I became okay. I became at peace. I was able to stop blaming myself. I was able to then see there is more. God, you want me to help be an advocate for those mamas that are like me, sitting there with 4 kids, 2 kids, 1 kid, however many, and just with questions. So I feel like in our relationship, I am the one to pull the information out of you at times, because you do have education, on the medical side with the mamas and pregnancies and things like that. Right. But when you went through your own process, you were very much a patient.
Yes.
I didn't always be that nurse, Erica. You know what I mean? We've had some really deep conversation. face to face,
Definitely.
Marco Polo, on the phone, through text.
All of it,
And
girl.
that is why we're doing this. You know, like
Yes.
what you just said, the first time you didn't feel that you had that support necessarily, that you needed, and you may not have known
Right.
walking through it. A lot of times we don't know exactly what we need. We just feel like we're missing something.
Exactly.
We're needing
Right.
something. And this go round was different. For one, like you said, it was a blueprint of your first experience. Secondly, you did
Absolutely.
have a friend that had just gone through it, and you were able to, if nothing else, vent sometimes.
Right.
You know what I mean? And just share, and or just, this was my day. And I'm like, okay, girl,
Yes.
I get you. And we keep it moving.
Just so
Next topic, right?
right.
And that's why we're doing this. Mamas need a space that they can come to get information, to share, to ask questions, and actually receive answers. And as you know, that's been a big part of why I didn't know, while when you thought you were rambling, you were actually informing me, because I literally have asked um, my doctors and nurses that, you know, would be walking me through month to month in my pregnancies. And sometimes the responses were just so general.
What I First of all, I agree with absolutely everything you said.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that once something becomes your soapbox, so to speak, it's like, oh no, I want all of the answers.
Yeah.
Whereas before I was pregnant the first time, it's like, okay, preeclampsia is, and you go read a book and you're like, this is the definition of this is what it looks like. But to feel it from the inside, to feel the headaches, to have your vision change, to, just take your blood pressure and it be 220 over 119. So anybody who knows anything about blood pressure, that's too many numbers, number one. Number one.
Yeah.
And two, anything is not okay.
Mm-hmm.
But to go through it and to know that you have had patients die from it, and patients who have no clue about it, and they just show up because, well, my doctor sent me from the clinic.
Yeah.
And to then be the patient that is like, oh, we can't get your blood pressure down. And it's like, oh, okay. Well, I understand what is happening, but at the same time, the emotion that comes with it being you, or the emotion that comes with being a friend or a new friend like yourself, is like, okay, but we gotta fix this. We have to do something.
Mm-hmm.
What else can we do? And so you're right. I absolutely stepped into the patient role, and everything kind of went out the window after things started going going down, basically. Once my blood pressure started going up, and the medicine's not helping, and drinking water is not helping, it really dawned on me that, okay, at this point, this is what I meet most of my patients.
Right.
They come in and they don't know that a headache is a big deal. They don't know that their swelling is excessive. And so it's like, okay, I'm looking at you and you're painting me a picture of myself now.
Mm.
And so I think that when we expect people to have every answer for us, we're not wrong for wanting those answers, especially from our medical providers. But if you walk in it, it is 100 times different.
Absolutely.
And you then have to, at least for me, I then have to go the extra route to be like, do you understand what I'm telling you? Do you understand that I want you to take your blood pressure every day? Do you understand that I want you to watch your salt and drink this much water and X, Y, Z?
Yeah.
Do you get that? Because and then to not scare people, it's like, I'm not trying to scare you, but the complications from this can be life-threatening for you and your baby, or for you if you're just postpartum. But yeah, I definitely became a little more informed. Like, you tell me I'm educated, but it's like that all goes out the window when it's you, even if you're a nurse.
Yeah.
So,
and it's interesting to sit on the sideline and actually see that happen to you. You know,
right.
You had told me your story when I'm laying there on my hospital bed having I had just had my own baby. Fast forward, you conceive, you're pregnant, and I see you doing all the right things. Girl, you were working out. You were eating low carb. You were killing it. And I literally told my husband, man, that's how I should have been. That's what I should,
Yeah, you said that.
I did. I told you that too. And
I
then I
know.
see the same thing still happen. And that
This-
confirms the the things that you've explained happen internally. You know what I mean? With what
Right.
preeclampsia does to the body and the whys and all that stuff. It's like the things you did were helpful for sure,
Mhm.
but they weren't necessarily preventative.
Well, definitely. And then the emotional counterpart to that was, of course, I'm beating myself up. It's like, okay, well, and part of my story was after I had my son, I was on 4 different medications. And my doctor at this point, it's like 4 months postpartum, so I'm not even seeing an OB anymore. And they're like, we don't know what to do with you basically at this point. You need to go see a primary care provider. And I went to her and she said, listen, you are 26 years old and you are going to be on all of these medicines for the rest of your life. And that's when I was like, oh no, I I can do something about this. And if I can't, it's not going to be for lack of trying.
Right.
So I started eating low carb. I started working out. I lost 70 pounds.
Wow.
And I was like, at that point, we were ready to start trying to conceive again.
Mhm.
And so I'm like, okay, I'm nervous, but I've done what I can do at this point. And so for the same thing to happen again was like, I didn't do enough. And I still put my baby's life in danger. And it was still very emotional to have done all those things that you're like, oh, eat right and exercise. It sounds cliche, but it does help.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I had my doctor who is amazing. He came to me when I did get readmitted this time, and he said, think about what would have happened if you hadn't done that.
Exactly.
Think about if you were still eating like you were eating with the first one, which I loved me some carbs. And so to not have eaten carbs and then have it happen, it's like I could have been having my fries and my bread and all these things.
Right.
But he really did. He was like, think about what shape you would be in if you hadn't changed your life. If you didn't know what you knew, if you hadn't, done what you did to try and prevent it, it probably definitely pushed me off as far as complications. It probably gave me some time.
Mm-hmm.
And it probably could have been a lot worse if I hadn't. So the emotions don't change. Being a hormonal pregnant woman does not change just because you have some extra knowledge foundation.
Right. That's right.
And I think that's what we talked about and I cried about to you on Marco Polo was like, if I know all of these things and I still feel this way and I can't, make my brain and my heart match where I'm not beating myself up, I cannot imagine being someone who just didn't know, just was truly, purely ignorant about it, and something happened to them or their baby, and it could have been prevented, or it could have, not been so devastating.
Mm-hmm.
And that is one of my whys as far as why I wanted to do this channel.
Yeah.
When you brought it up, it was like, absolutely, when, where, how, what do we have to do?
Mm-hmm. Right.
I want to prevent that for women, or at least inform them of the early detection options for them.
Yeah. That's so good. It really is. And it was basically like, okay, let's take this Marco Polo conversation to the internet because other women want, you know what I mean? They need this too. And so
Right.
here we are. I am so happy. I'm overjoyed. I'm like, yes, finally, because listen, if I can just be 100% real, nobody wants to look like the stalker when they first meet somebody or the weird person or the weird creepy patient that just had her baby early and is drunk off meds and high and all that, right? But
That happened.
with all that happening, I knew I was like, she's gonna be in my life. And I don't know how, and I'm not making nothing happen. I'm not forcing nothing. I didn't even know if I was like, you were super nice and wonderful and all that, but I'm like, I don't know that she feels the same.
Yes, no, maybe.
Right. I was about seconds for writing a note. I'm talking to Maddie like, man, she would come in some days. What were you doing when you had the cart with snacks?
Oh, my unit was short that day, so I was your tech. I was actually just there to take your blood pressure. So I lived in your room because they were horrible that night. And you had an amazing nurse also, but just her background wasn't that. I wasn't her soapbox. And so she came to me, she was like, listen, this is what's going on with her, this, that, and the other. Can you help me? So I made a couple phone calls. for her, on her behalf. And I was pretty much telling her, because she's a postpartum nurse. And so a lot of these things start on labor and delivery. So I'm like telling her, basically, kind of filling in the gaps for her. And she was just like, I'm so glad you're my tech. But she was doing an amazing job also. But that's what I was doing. I was the tech.
Okay. I just remember you having snacks, and you were so generous with the snacks. You want some? No, like I said,
you had a baby, girl.
I was still a little high and stuff. So, but piggybacking off of what you said, the staff was phenomenal. Y'all was there, 8 days? I was there 8 days.
Girl, a long time.
And was not pushed out the door like, would she leave? I hope I wasn't difficult, but everybody was so loving, so just generous and caring, and it was just blissful. And
Good.
you truly stood out, and I was like, something about her. I don't know what it is, because I be praying and stuff. So I'm like, okay, what is it? But I was still in my condition, not, whatever. And who knew that? Was it through our husbands?
Oh, girl.
Connecting on Facebook or something?
You guys were talking about, I think, a friend that you had lost at the time, a bass player.
Yeah, while I was in the hospital.
Oh, my husband plays the bass, and he plays for this church. And you were like, my husband plays for this church, and it's a multi-locational church. So I was like, okay, then I know my husband knows her. It went that far, and then I became kind of the one that was like, I'm gonna look for your husband on Facebook, but I'm not gonna say nothing. But then I'm gonna be like, is it okay if I tag my husband and your girl? And they were already Facebook friends.
They were already Facebook friends.
That's how it works.
Crazy. I'm like, what? What? That is what happened.
I just kept saying we might be the same person.
You did say that a lot.
We might be the same person.
I don't understand why I'm so excited right now, because this was a year ago, and I was highly medicated. So some of this stuff is freshly coming back, like, oh yeah.
Oh yes. It was a good time. I mean, obviously you were dealing with a lot, but I was just happy to be able to be in there and kind of make it light, make it, not so scary. Was all, a good start. But then to be light and talking to you and talking to your husband, talking to your friends and your daughter, and it's just like, okay, we are all of us, myself included, are gonna be okay.
Yeah.
So that impact. And then after you left, even, it was like, number one, we kept wondering when you were gonna leave. I'm not gonna lie to you. So the next time I worked, I was like, is she still here? And you were either gone that afternoon or had left the day before or something. And I was up there, and I'm like, so my friend, the patient, I'm talking to these nurses, and they're like, you didn't went and found you a friend that was a patient, because that's not that it's a no, but it's just like, we get attached to our people, and so you'll have a million Facebook friends if you do that regularly.
I can imagine.
I want you to know I don't do this every day.
I remember you telling me that, like, off and on, when we first kind of were in conversation and stuff, I was all in with this woman, because you're amazing. And I knew that everything that you are, all that's inside of you, these gifts, these callings, this education, all of who you are. I'm like, girl, we need that. The people need that. And so I'm so glad that you were bold enough and confident and all the things, and just stepped out to do beyond the bump, because it is what people need. And this Mama Forum, us being able to do this together, having you as a mother and a nurse, and me as like, I need a super patient or something. I don't know.
Oh no, you're definitely the super patient. You have obviously, you've just been through so much, and just even your spirit just completely, consistently just positive and uplifting other people, even when you're dealing with things. Nobody would ever have known that you were going through the things that you were going through. So you definitely get the super patient star. Don't hand that out lightly.
Thank you. If I have a super patient t-shirt on next episode, y'all don't judge. Thank you. But I felt like it's able to bridge both worlds, you know what I mean? And sometimes when we are talking, I do have those questions, you know what I mean? Because I'm able to speak from the perspective of literally somebody that's like, what? Like some stuff I've just been clueless on just being honest and transparent, even after 4 children. And then my children are so spread apart in age. Sometimes my pregnancy, certain parts, I felt like I was starting over. Like, wait,
Oh yeah.
you know, and you can have a pregnancy back to back and still be like that. And we're not talking about mommy brain, right? We didn't even talk about that part.
So. No, we haven't. But I feel like the way that people, because I'm always in awe of people who choose to like purposely have children close together, because it's like, man, you forgot already. But God truly does let you forget. Otherwise, we would be a whole lot less populated, because we'd be like, oh no, I remember all of this, and I will do it again.
Yeah.
But eventually, it's like, okay, well, maybe we can do this again. Mm-hmm. And that's how I ended up where I am. Because I'm like, okay, it took 5 years, but it's like maybe we can do it again. So yeah, I mean, and like I said, even being a nurse, every nurse is not labor and delivery. I mean, and then even being a labor and delivery nurse, when you become the patient, it all goes out the window.
Right.
So we were definitely in the same boat. When we were the patients, we were the same person.
Right. Sure. We say we're the patient, the same person a lot, because it's true. It's like we respond to situations very similarly, and just so many things. I just love it. Yeah. So, in closing, do you just have any nuggets that you can share?
So I will say, I've only been pregnant twice, and I did have 2 babies. So I definitely cannot speak to the situation of like infertility or pregnancy loss. I will definitely always be there to support anyone who deals with that. So my nuggets would definitely be, if something does not feel right, do something about it. Whether that's calling your doctor, and I'm an advocate for harassing a doctor. Like, usually when my patients meet me, they're like, you just called that doctor. Yeah. And you called them like 5 times. I did, because this can be life or death. So if you feel like something isn't right, or something like, oh man, I don't remember if they said XYZ, call somebody. Call a labor and delivery unit. Call your doctor. There should be somebody on call for you. And keep telling somebody until you find somebody to listen. Because oftentimes they're not thinking about big picture things. They're dealing with 50 patients at the same time. Right. And you might have something going on that's not super common. So they're like, oh, it's probably not that. If it still feels wrong, if they say, hey, call me in the morning or call me in an hour, and it hasn't been an hour, but it just doesn't feel right, then call them again. Find somebody who will listen to you, because it could be the difference between you having a healthy baby and you being healthy, or something detrimental happening.
That's really good. That's good. And if I can piggyback on that, don't be afraid to let people know around you, your people, whoever those people that are your people, when you're not walking through trying to get pregnant, walking through pregnancy, or have had the history of high risk and you're fearful or whatever. Don't sit there and not talk to someone about it, even if it's some level of counseling. I'm speaking from experience that trauma, it just follows you. It just opens up this whirlwind of more questions and more fears and all those things. So it took me to walk through this literally 4 times to finally get confident enough to do what I'm telling you to do now.
Wow.
I think sometimes, what if I did this? When I first experienced the trauma after having Maddie, all the questions of my baby's in the NICU and I don't know, and the postpartum depression and all the stuff, So just if one person you can find that you trust, just say, listen, this is what I'm going through. I don't even know what to do. Can you just help me with this? They could be the one to do the footwork to find the help. Okay. But please just speak up, mama. Don't go through this life alone. Okay.
That's good.
Thank you guys so much. Erica, the Mama Forum is finally here, and we are so, so excited. We have so much to share with everybody.
Oh
so many
yeah.
topics. And we're going to set a platform up for you guys to send us questions and things like that.
Please send us questions, send us your stories, because you might feel like your story is unique, and it is unique to you. But if you feel like you went through something alone, I promise you, somebody else has dealt with that. And that might be how you find that person that you can go to in the future. Because it doesn't, I mean, we are bonded through this thing called motherhood. We're bonded through this thing called womanhood. So there's no reason to feel like something is off limits. There is no off limit topic. There's nothing that's taboo. I promise you, from 10 years of labor and delivery, I've seen, I'm not gonna say everything, but every day gets a little closer to everything. You can't shock me. So please send us your stories, your questions, your comments, anything at all that we can do. That's what we're here for at the Mama Forum.
Yes. Thank you guys. Erica, love you so much. And we will see y'all next time.
Bye.